Welcome to Midlife Matters. I'm Marie, and each week I'm joined by my friends Julie and Mindy to talk about all the topics keeping women in the middle years up at night. Today we're talking about friendship. Join us as we discuss the 3 rules of adult friendships that can strengthen current relationships and help create new ones. Let's get started. Listeners, today we are talking about adult friendships. And I think this might be, the 4th time in the years that we've been podcasting that we've done a friendship episode. And I feel like I learn something new every time. So if you've heard us talk about friendships before, I promise you this is going to be a new thing, because this time we are talking about the adult rules of friendship. And then also just the concept of creating community, establishing community, what it takes to have community. So I feel like we have a lot of good things to delve in here today.
Oh, yeah. It's definitely one of those topics that it's funny you said we've probably talked about it 4 times. And I'm like, well, that's fitting because our podcast has been going 5 years. So it's time, because this is a constant need in our lives. And as we talk about it today, I think we could continue to talk about this at least once a year on our podcast, because we're always learning and growing. Seasons change and, but we're always looking for how to connect.
I had to laugh because I thought, I think we've just talked about this. So I looked back. But it is a new, fresh take on friendships.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's an important topic. The things we looked at online really seem to resonate with a lot of people.
Yeah.
Yes. And who doesn't love a formula for living?
Even if we don't follow it, we want to know what it is.
Exactly.
All right, Julie, well, you kind of got us started on this topic by sending us a little story. And why don't you tell listeners about it?
Yeah, it was an article about this little village where all these women, and had a beautiful painting too that went with it. And it was about a village where all these women were washing clothes together down by the river. And it said when they all got washing machines, there was this sudden outbreak of depression and no one could figure out why. And they said it wasn't the machines, obviously, in and of themselves, but it was the absence of time spent together in community. And I don't know, I clicked on the comics and everybody said, oh, how beautiful. I love this. This is so true. And I just thought about, this would be a really good thing to talk about because, like what price have we paid for convenience, in relationships?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. And it also talked a little bit about how we like to think of ourselves as independent and not needing other people. And I think the washing machines give us that illusion. Like, I can take care of my own laundry. Like, I don't need, but we actually do all need community. We're not as independent as we think we are. Like, there comes a time where you do need other people and you do need friends. So I thought this was a good reminder of that too.
Yeah, I think she said you can do it alone, but why? You get to a point where there's a better way to do this.
Oh, it kind of made me sad in a way, kind of melancholy, maybe more than sad, but because it's something that, as we talk about the formula and we talk about, some other resources that we use to prepare, this has obviously been close to my heart. It's something that, we've talked about on the podcast, and I feel like I've made so many friends over my lifetime, and I'm even in a different season now. And so I'm thinking, okay, well, what we talk about when we talk about the podcast later, she mentions 3 things that went into that. And that really resonated with me because in this current season, one of those things is missing for me. But at the same time, as much as that made me sad, it kind of gave me hope, because then I thought, there are some things I can work on. What can I do? And I think it's just coming back to that over and over and over. What can I do at the place I am right now? So then I kind of ended hopeful as much as I started out kind of sad.
This really took me back thinking about my own mom. Like, I remember my mom, I think, wallpapered every kitchen and bath on our street, because she helped other women do that. And then when it was, then it was her turn, she helped. I mean, she helped them and they helped her, And I know I have a friend that when she comes to visit, we have painted a bathroom. We have repaired something, we've refurbished things, we've done a craft, she'll say, "What do you need done? Like, when I get there, I want you to give me something to do."
Mm.
Oh,
And those
yeah.
have been the most fun visits. And, a lot of times we feel like we just need to entertain people, but I like that idea when she comes that we want to do something. And I like to think I'm independent and I don't need help. But this last few years, especially moving, I had no choice. I needed y'all. And, we've talked about this, like when you had to let somebody in to see all your stuff and pack it up. Marie,
Mhm.
you mentioned like how vulnerable that would be. But that actually really felt good afterwards
Mm.
to
Mhm.
think like
Yeah.
it made us closer.
Mhm.
And,
Right.
and I think that's why I've always kind of found vacationing with other families appealing was there's just this closeness you get when seeing people, for how they really are.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah, I definitely think doing an activity or a project or something together can be so valuable. I think nowadays, if you offer to help somebody wallpaper something, like other than your kids, I think nowadays people say no, like they're just going to hire it out. Like they don't
Mhm.
necessarily want to do it themselves, and so they don't necessarily need the help. But I do feel like that's kind of a lost thing where even moving, like, of course,
Mhm.
Yeah.
we're all older now, but like when you were younger and you just got together a bunch of your friends to move,
Mhm.
that was still a bonding experience.
Mhm.
Right.
You didn't feel any weirdness about, like, your friends would say, "Oh, hey, I remember we moved and a bunch of people from the church came over and cleaned the house before we moved in." The house that I moved into now, I think the person hired cleaners before they moved out. I think that's more of a general thing now that people do. When I was younger and you moved, like, you moved into a dirty house and your friends were the ones that helped you clean it up before you moved your stuff in.
Right.
Like, that was just
It's
what life
true.
was.
Yes.
Yeah, I
You're
know.
right. I think that there's throughout the seasons and ages, there's acceptable forms of help and
Mhm.
reaching out and things to offer. Like now I know that one acceptable thing I can help with is if somebody has a baby or has surgery or is sick, food.
Mhm.
Food is always acceptable. But also it really is nice when you can come around a shared need. So like the washing machine scenario, I was thinking back to my parents and being raised in the military, and military wives really pulled together
Mm.
Mhm.
because the men, that type of lifestyle is so unique and different, especially if you can live on base or on post,
Mhm.
that becomes your family. You're all away from your family, but you're all in the same unique scenario of
Mhm.
need. And so then you really do pull together at that time. You get really close with the people on base, the wives get close, the children get close, because you all have the same need. And
Mhm.
so now, really, what separates us is what needs we each have, and then
Mhm.
what's acceptable.
I
Like,
know. Like
how can I help?
recently, a friend had been sick. She was sick for like 2 weeks, and she said, "I'm finally feeling better. I'm going to get the house clean, and I want to have you over." And I said, "No, like save some cleaning for me. Like I would love to come
Oh,
help you." And she wouldn't let me do it.
Mm.
She
yeah.
waited a little bit longer till she felt better, and and I hated that. But I remember recently someone also offered that to me, and I said, "No, I don't know what it is. You just
Right.
Yeah, the cleaning thing does make me feel a little bit uncomfortable. I totally all in on a project, but the cleaning thing, I mean, it's not that I would mind helping someone else clean, but I can see
right."
I've never had a
Oh,
house cleaner, so I'm not used to that, like, oh, I'll just step aside and let everybody clean my bathroom. Like, that's just not me.
that's
Well,
a
I said I'd
very
help her. Like we could both
right.
do it. Like I wouldn't mind that at all.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm not saying that you would have. I'm just saying I can see her perspective. Like, I think those
Yeah.
kinds of things I've offered before and not been taken up on them. I know people have offered them to me, even after me
Hmm.
having a baby, and I wouldn't take them up on it.
It's
Yeah.
scary though. It's scary to be vulnerable and open in
Mhm.
general, let alone
Mhm.
with your mess,
Right.
With your dirt.
Right.
Like, I mean, I would love somebody to clean my bathroom, but not somebody I know. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like,
Right.
you don't look at me, I won't look at you as you leave my house after you've cleaned that.
Right.
Let's pretend we never met.
But our bathrooms all look the same is what we need done.
Yeah, I
Do
don't
they,
know.
Julie? Do they?
Well, let's talk a little bit about what our washing machines are, because I don't really think that our generation is ever going to go back to congregating around the river, washing
Mhm.
our clothing
No.
together. Like, I don't even want that kind of community.
Uh-huh.
What are some of the things that have taken the place of community in our lives?
Well, I just started thinking literally with convenience issues. Like if you want to help somebody, like I've offered, hey, I'm at the grocery store. Can I get you anything if they're ill? Well, no, I'll just order my groceries. Or can I take you to the airport? And my neighbor said, no, I'll just Uber. I would never ask you to do that. Like there's
Mm,
always another
Oh, right.
way that you
mhm,
don't have to help somebody. You don't have to connect. And,
Uh-huh.
those are great conveniences, but they are changing the
mhm.
way we interact,
That's true.
letting strangers do things for you.
I was thinking iPhone, having virtual people in your pocket or virtual
Hmm.
community, like social media wise, or like
Mm.
having constant streaming options at your fingertips, or basically you never have to be bored. You don't ever have to just chat with somebody at the airport anymore. You can just get on your phone. Like, I don't know. I think
Oh, right.
that has
Hmm.
kind of taken away a lot of just incidental community that we would have. You don't even have to ask someone what time it is. You don't have to ask
Right.
someone for directions. You don't have to ask someone who would be a good doctor or where they recommend to eat, because you can look up all that stuff online. You don't have to have the conversations that you used to have.
Right.
True.
One thing that Bryce and I were talking about the other night, we were walking our neighborhood and we were talking about just like when our neighborhood started and how cool it would have been to see the kids that are now kind of grown and gone when they were little starting out in the neighborhood. And I was like, oh, yeah, because, back then kids played together that lived near
Mm.
each other.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have seen pictures of these young adult children when they were little in our neighborhood, when they would get together for like Easter party or Valentine's party. And so we have had some people like us move into the neighborhood with children at the house, but they're not playing in the yard. Like they're
Right.
not,
Mm-hmm.
like summers. The kids are not out jumping through a water hose. They're not
Right.
seeing which house they can run to. And so even in that scenario, that's where all my friends used to come from, was from the neighborhood. But now it's, everything's kind of scheduled and programmed, camps and, things like that. And
Mm-hmm.
so even just, your neighborhood, it's quiet.
Back to something you said, Marie, on the podcast that we're going to talk about later, she mentions kind of little micro connections. She calls them weak
Mm.
ties. And she said, I hate to call them weak ties
Mhm.
because they're really more valuable than you think. And like what you said, Marie, just those, asking somebody what time it is could lead to a
Mhm.
conversation, and talking to people at the coffee shop or the grocery store, like those, when you're lonely, those mean a lot.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And when they're gone,
Mhm.
it's just, you just realize I'm talking to no one, I just think those
Right.
really are important, and maybe we don't realize it.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, before the internet, you had to ask somebody for basically everything in your life. Who would be a good babysitter? Who would be a good contractor? Who would be a good
Mhm.
healthcare provider? How would you get to somewhere? What restaurants do you like around here? What is there to do for fun? What is a good neighborhood to live in? What bank should I use? Like, you had to poll your community for everything. There wasn't any internet to look it up. There wasn't any Facebook page where you could type in how to screen my porch in and who to use. Like, I mean, you
Mhm.
could you had
Mhm.
to go up to someone who had a screened in porch and you had to say, hey, I like your porch. Who did that for you? Like you had
Yeah.
to have a conversation, and then they had to write down a name and a number. And like, we just don't have to do that anymore. So a lot of those weak ties just really aren't even happening for us.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's
And that was the part that I realized, like the part of me that answered the question that I was sad at first is I know that that's on me. Like, oh, I haven't reached out, or I haven't been open, or I haven't allowed people in my world. Like people are all around me, and you're interacting with people all the time. And so then the hopeful part is that you can look up and you can reach out and you can change those feelings of loneliness if you have kind of become so independent, you don't need anyone else.
Mhm.
Because it's in those moments of need and allowing people to enter your world
Mhm.
in some form or fashion, or for you to enter someone else's world. Like that's where these connections are happening and they're available. We just have to be open and looking and ready to tap in and say yes.
Yeah, yesterday I was on the phone and I was making a doctor's appointment with a new doctor. And afterwards, I just asked her, "Now, where are you located? What's your address?" And I thought, I felt so stupid after I said that. She was like, I thought, I bet the woman's like, "How'd you get this number?" Like, where to find the address. She didn't say any of that, but in my mind, I felt embarrassed, like that I would ask her a question that I could find out on my own, you know?
Mhm.
Okay, well, what are some ways that you have come together with other women to share ideas or stories or struggles in the past? Like, what has worked that you have? We mentioned like home projects. We've come together around
Mhm.
those. And I think about this like genuine need drives people to seek community. So
Mhm.
Mhm.
when you're young and you don't have a lot of money, you are going to gather those friends to help you move. You're going to gather them to help you wallpaper. You're going to have them, help you build a deck or whatever. Like you need things. So you're always helping each other. Also, when I had 5 little kids, I was very much in need. Okay, I had to be in a carpool. My kid is not going to be able to play lacrosse if I cannot find a carpool. And finding a carpool involves me polling a bunch of women. Hey, do you need help getting to practice? You live close to me. What if I did Monday, Tuesday, you did Wednesday, Thursday? Like you have to put yourself out there. And then you also have to be like, "Oh, and can I have your phone number if there's an emergency and I couldn't get there?" Like when you have a bunch of little kids, you are needy. You cannot take care of it
Mhm.
all by yourself. It is
Yeah.
physically impossible. So I would say need had brought me community in the past. Like we don't always think of the good byproducts of being needy, but it really does force you to seek out
Mhm.
community and other people that are needy actually happy to help you because then you can be mutually meeting each other's needs.
True.
Yes.
I thought about desperation for adult conversation. Like,
Yes.
um, the easiest and best time for friendships for me was when my kids were little, and you think, well, how could that be? But we would get together, like a lot of us smocked, and we would get all our toddlers together and bring a lunch and sew and let them play. And then when it was time for naps, we all went home, put our kids to bed.
Mhm.
Mm.
And those were some of my best friends during that time.
Mhm.
I would say help with decorating. That's always a good, like, hey, come look at
Mm.
this. What do you think? Not actually doing it necessarily, just, hey, what do you think about this? Do you have any
Mhm.
ideas? I want you to tell me what this looks like. That's always a good connection point. And I would say book club
Oh.
has met a need in my life these past years because it's kind
Mhm.
of turned into a close group and it's turned into more than just reading books. Like we pray together and share needs with each other. And that's been a good thing for many years, but especially right now. And
Mhm.
then also church groups. That's in the past. That met more of a need when my kids were at church, like school age. And then I was running into those parents and,
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
a lot. But now it takes a lot more work.
Yeah. Well, you don't have as many visible needs. I mean, you have
Mhm.
needs, but they're not as visible as they are when your kids are young
Hmm.
and, all
Yeah.
that kind of
You have
stuff.
to create opportunities now. My mind went to when the kids were little too, just like you guys did first. And one of the best ways that I've always connected with people has been walking. And I remember even walking, Abby was in a stroller, and then I had to get a double jogger
Mhm.
stroller. And I had a
Hmm.
friend that had a double jogger stroller, and she and I would tear it up like together. We would pack down the snacks and we would
Hmm.
we would walk. And Bryce was in grad school. He was gone a lot. And it met a crucial need in my life at that point. And then we added more children, and children went to school. And like all the various stages, walking has been a common denominator throughout my life of
Mhm.
being able to meet with a friend, physically move. I always leave a walk with a friend feeling so much freer, better, like got new ideas,
Hmm.
just fresher. So me physically moving and doing something with a friend is so much better than, honestly, I struggle with meeting for lunch. I'm not kind of your best lunch girl because
Mm.
I get antsy and it's hard for me to focus.
Mm.
I've never noticed more how much I need to physically move with a friend or do an activity with a friend, work with a friend, move my hands. So I
Mhm.
love all the things you guys said, but I'm still finding ways to work out with friends. And that's where I have said before, I meet people at the gym or I go for
Hmm.
walks with people a lot. So that's still just one of my
Mhm.
Yeah.
favorite things.
Me too. I agree.
I think when my kids were on sports teams,
Yeah.
I felt like, okay, well, we're all here watching this hour-and-a-half game, and you would look forward to talking with the other women in the stands, and that was a great social outlet. We're going to talk a little bit later about how proximity is one of the things that you need for friendships, and while your kids are on a sports team together, the proximity piece is there. You're literally right next to each other, and when that sports season ends, you feel a loss because then the proximity isn't there anymore, and so you're not running into that person all the time, and you think, oh, where did that friendship go? But then I've seen those people periodically, like in a store or something, and we could still talk for an hour. It's just that we don't come in contact like we did multiple times a week when our kids played sports together.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, we have definitely talked about entering the lonely years. And I know that that's where our conversation is going. As our kids get older and teenage problems are different, you're not communing with other people necessarily around, their activities, they're driving, you're alone.
Right.
They don't want to talk to you, maybe. And it's just hard. And then when your kids leave the house. And so the way that you meet and commune with people has to change. And so I'm glad we have kind of some helpful ways to talk about how to do that.
Well, Julie, why don't we get to the podcast? Because I think that had so much meat in it for us to discuss. Do you want to explain the podcast that you sent us?
Okay, it was a podcast by Mel Robbins, and the episode was Why Making Friends as an Adult Feels Impossible and What to Do About It. So it's a very catchy title. It draws you right in. And so she talked about the 3 pillars of friendships, or the 3 things that are necessary to create friendship. And one was proximity, which you've mentioned, and that just means not just like how close you live to somebody necessarily, but just how often you're bumping into them or how often your paths cross. Like, you're going to be at that sporting event every Wednesday, The second thing is timing, which I didn't love that word. She means like season of life, like where you are in life. And then the third is energy. And I kind of thought of that as chemistry, like, do you click or do you not click right now? So she said that proximity was the single biggest factor, and it really matters more than you think. And she said that this makes adult friendships harder, especially when as children, you were going to class with the same people, sitting there all day. You had hours with these people. Then you rode the bus home, and then you went to sporting events with them. And then you were in the same youth group. Like you just had time with the people who were in the same season of life as you. Like it was just a perfect situation to create friendship. And then when you get older, that goes away. You have to be more intentional. So then the next one was timing. And this is just the phase of life you're in. And then energy is realizing that sometimes you click and sometimes you don't, and kind of being flexible with that. So she has a lot to say about each of these.
Proximity, I would say for me, well, it says it's for everybody, the biggest factor, but I always feel bad that I am so susceptible to proximity, but I guess I shouldn't feel bad because I guess everybody must be. But like you hear those people like, oh, I went to high school with this person and now we live across the country from each other, but she's my best friend. We talk, a couple times a week. There's no proximity there. Like, I don't know that I could keep that level of friendship up. Like, I need shared experiences with people. I need commonality. I need them to know about the little details and really understand what my situation is like. And I don't know that you can understand that when you live across the country. So I've always felt guilty because I've gotten really close to people in different places that I've lived and enjoyed their company immensely. And if I saw them tomorrow, would totally want to catch up. But with the proximities not there, I'm not good about keeping up the friendship. Like, I don't know if that's just on me or if that's on everybody. I mean, Mindy, you've moved a lot. What do you think?
Well, I was going to say, like, it's not reasonable to keep up with everyone that's come in and out of your life. But I think that that's okay. And the people that the Lord has placed you around, those are the friendships that you're cultivating on a daily basis. but I do think that you still keep all those other friends. One of the comments that she made that I thought was like key in the podcast was friendships don't end.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
there's so much joy in that because I think we grieve a lot. We don't really know what to do when someone kind of leaves our orbit, leaves the proximity, and they were once close. You're like, well, nothing happened that we're not friends. We just don't see each other. And it's, you try your best and you try to keep up, but I think it's okay to let that go. And she mentioned the rubber band, that you may stretch the rubber band, but it's still there. So friendships don't end. And so when people do come in and out of your orbit, it's okay to allow that to happen. And it's okay to focus on the people that you're around because you will come into contact with those people later. And you're like, oh, yeah, we're still friends. It just, we're not in each other's daily life. Now, I still have some really great friends from all the places that I've lived that I do come in and out of those relationships, but I know I can't cultivate those on a daily basis. That actually would give me a lot more loneliness and sadness if those stayed my best friends. I can't do that.
Right.
I can't. You have to have people that are in proximity that you're doing daily things with. And so I have seen that as a joyful, like I'm filling a flower basket full of a lot more colorful flowers. These people are all still my friends, but I need the dailiness of that community and interaction. So I do have to spend more energy building into those friendships.
Well, with the proximity, I took it as she's talking about creating new friendships. You would have to have proximity. But once, you're a friend, like I have a friend that I talk about, Janet, that lives 9 hours away, and we're still very close friends, and it's not daily at all.
Right.
It's every few weeks text. It is different. It's not like a friend here, but I do appreciate that the friendship never ends, like we can easily pick back up and,
I will say, every place we have lived, we have learned that we're going to take maybe one, maybe two, if we're really, really blessed, friendships that will last the distance. And we almost can never know who those are going to be. And so this has been an interesting scenario throughout the course of our life. Because when we move to a place, we're like, I wonder who would still be that person. Because you almost can't know that when you're in the daily proximity. But we really do. We have gotten closer to some people after we left because you don't have daily the need or maybe pressure to keep up all the time. And it's a lot of fun to have those long distance friends because you may not have time to do all the daily stuff. And you're like, hey, let's just get together. And then it's like concentrated. You have a whole weekend together. You go, on a trip together. You go to each other's house. And those are really great friends.
It's easy.
It is.
I think one of the things that proximity came out in the podcast was in relationship to the scatterings in life. And so she talks about how when you are no longer in proximity to people, you will find that your friendships kind of scatter. So like when you leave college and you enter the workforce and you move to a new community, and then as you start a family, it's a mini scattering. Like maybe you quit your job and now you have new people you need to become friends with. And then if you ever move, even from the city to the suburbs, your friendships will change. And then when your kids are in elementary school versus when they go off to middle school versus when they go off to high school, I didn't realize at the beginning of my adulthood how many scatterings there would be. I feel like in my own life, there's been a scattering even when my kids graduated from high school.
Yeah.
I'm not coming in contact with all those moms that they went to school with, and there's not the school functions that bring you together or the sports and it's not that I wouldn't be able to have a conversation with any one of those women. It's just that we don't see each other. And so proximity is left. And so the friendships have not died, but they're not active, I guess. It's not an active friendship right now.
Right.
And I think that's why we're conditioned to think, as children, that you just expect friendships. They're just there. And with those scatterings, like in your 20s, you're not eating in the dorm anymore, or or you're living in a dorm, eating in a dining hall, going to class, and then suddenly you're in the workforce and you're with people of all different walks of life, different phases of life, and it gets hard. And I think that's where loneliness can start to set in if you don't have good connections.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And one of the things the podcast talked about is not taking those scatterings personally. It's not like I didn't like them and they didn't like me. It's just simply that our lives went in different directions and they don't cross paths anymore.
People kind of come in and out, and it isn't personal. You're right.
Right.
Another thing that came out in the podcast that I really thought was interesting is that she quoted a study that said that you have to have 50 hours of interaction with somebody to be considered a casual kind of friend, and 90 hours to be considered a friend, and 200 hours to be considered a good friend. And I thought, that's a lot of time. Sometimes that can be jump-started or jumped over, but in general, it does take a long time to develop friendships. So I'm not even saying that this is even close to 50 hours, but this was something that I noticed last month. They wanted to start some neighborhood book clubs last year, so I volunteered to host one. And I think we've met since May. We've met 8 or 9 times. That's not a lot of times. And you know how anything is, like maybe there's 15 people on the rolls and maybe at any one time 8 show up. So it might not even be always the same 8. But it was funny because this time we met and I really looked around the room and thought, oh, we're laughing. We're making jokes and teasing each other. We remember what someone said 2 or 3 times ago, and now we're bringing that up about their life. And that took, 8 or 9 times of meeting to even get to the point where you might know enough to make a funny remark to somebody. And so you have to give things time. If you only went 2 or 3 times and thought, I just don't think I get anything out of that activity, well, you'll never get to the point where you become friends because you have to invest time.
That's the depressing news. And she said, I don't want to say this to overwhelm you, but it's just true. And I think just knowing that going into it will give you more patience and you're waiting. You know what I mean? Like this does take time. Because we all just want that instant friendship,
It's true. I appreciate that she used the year long. She said that if you move, give yourself a year. And I can testify to that because you're figuring out your life and you're meeting different people and you're not sure who you're going to really click with and also what your schedule's going to be. And so as that starts to solidify and you have some more routine in your life, you will realize the people that you're going to come in contact with. Well, then you get to the third piece, and that's are we going to click? And I appreciate that she said, let them, not everyone is going to want to be your friend. And I've said before, not everyone's going to have space for you. And that's okay. It is okay because you also don't want to be everyone's friend. You can't possibly be everyonene's friend. And so that kind of, do we click? Are you interested? It feels like you're in a dating relationship. Are you interested? Yes. I'm interested. All right. Are we coming into contact with one another pretty easily, not to have to really jump through hoops because those are the people that you're kind of looking for. And then you really hope to get 1 or 2, it's such a gift. Friendship is such a gift. And to make those good connections, it's not going to necessarily be a lot of people. You might meet them in a group, but then you'll kind of find your person. You know what I mean? So just being open and looking and putting yourself out there for a long time.
Yeah. And I like what she said. This was toward the end about things that you can do, not taking it personally and all of that. That what is your motivation when you ask somebody, when you invite them or whatever, is it, and this is we've probably all done this, you're hoping to get something in return. And so what if they don't respond? What if they never say yes, whatever? Then you get to decide, well, I still want to do this anyway. I want to give to them, without anything in return. And that's really hard because you're wanting to jump to the, I need this friend or whatever. But I appreciated that. Doing something because you want to do it and not thinking about what you're going to gain. And you may gain anyway, but not focusing on that.
I have to say, your motivation and your perspective of a friendship will either kill it or make it grow because my friends that are in my life are true treasures. And I know when I have mistreated those treasures. I know when I have not forgiven quickly, reached out, said yes, had energy, and not been the one to invite or take the time to call or check or remembered that they were going through something. Like, I know when I have not done that, when I have not cultivated, spent time to do so. And so the thing is, the people that are going to be in your life, they're going through the same thing. They're going to feel like they haven't necessarily had the time or energy or space. Or anytime somebody goes through suffering, we all tend to pull out and inward. And so it's really hard. It becomes a very lonely season. And that was one of the things Mel Robbins talked about, is when you're at your lowest, how do you cultivate friendship? You've got like nothing to give, you know
But
what
you
I
need
mean?
it the
Like,
most, right?
but you need it the most. And so it's beautiful is that people are very forgiving, and your friends, that may not be the best at cultivating, there's people out there that love you. And that when you do decide to turn it on, to be open, to say yes, to look up, to cry for help, like there's going to be people that are there to respond. And so, but if you can easily forgive and pour into a relationship, and just know, like I always think of a balancing scale. Sometimes I'm going to do more work, but sometimes my friend's going to do more work. And we're going to take turns, and we love each other, and we're going to let each other move in and out of this friendship. But we're going to stay friends, and the friendship is going to last.
Yeah.
Well, I like how she brought up how there's like, you hear this on social media or in conversation, like people that break up with a friend, or how do you break up with a friend, or how do you end a friendship? And she was basically saying there is no need for that. People are going to come in and out of your life, and they're going to mess up and they're going to disappoint you. And she said you have to take the attitude of let them. Like, you're going to do it to other people. And there's no reason to think, well, I need to just make this big thing and like break up with this person because they haven't called me in 6 months and they hadn't invited me to lunch. Like, maybe they're going through a season, or, maybe there's some proximity issue right now. She said, take a look at the proximity, the timing, the energy level. Could be one of those pillars is out of whack. Could be that in a year from now, you'll meet up somewhere and then that friendship will just take off again. Like, there's just no need in general to be like ending friendships.
Yeah. And I want to speak to the sadness and the grief part, because grief has kind of affected each one of those pillars for me. It's taken me out of proximity because I just don't want to be in a group or whatever, or I don't have the energy. Like putting yourself out there is risky. So I feel like I'm really not the best me right now. I'm just going to wait till I can put my best foot forward. And so it takes, and then the sparrow's phase of life, I'm like, no one's in my phase of life. It's just hard to find somebody that I click with. And I'm talking about like new people more than existing friends. But it is like that rubber band. And anytime any one of those pillars is off, it's going to stretch or strain a friendship, but it will bounce back. It will come back at a different time. And, but yeah, I just feel like, like right now, my, activities create proximity. Well, my activity is reading. Well, I'm not bumping into a lot of people on my couch. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If I were playing pickleball or whatever, then that creates like kind of that childhood situation where you're always in contact with people. But my activities right now don't do that. And so it's just been really hard. I feel like they're all out of whack, but it has been a scattering. And, just like moving or changing churches or whatever, but it's one I couldn't control.
Whenever you go through something, no matter what it is, it changes you, and it changes the way you live your life. And it's going to affect absolutely every relationship that you have. And so those longer friendships allow it, they allow the coming in and coming out. And there's some seasons that are lonelier. And then there's times where you come back out again. And so I know that it separates you from people, like Maria and I won't understand how you feel exactly, but we love you. And so we're friends, but it has separated you in a way because you've had to carry a burden and a grief that, people that haven't don't understand. The
Yeah.
beauty of friendship is we do try to carry one another's burdens in all the different stages of life. But it's really hard, when you feel lonely and you're like, I have no energy to try to make a friend, but I need a friend. I just don't know how to, how do I say that?
Sure.
And who do I say it to,
And you feel like, well, if I can't give anything right now, then I don't need to be messing with it. It's like, no, I'm not, I can't put myself out there if I can't give anything. Like, who's going to want to be in a friendship like that?
Right.
So, yeah, it's complicated.
Yeah.
I'll say when I've moved, some moves have been easier than others. There was one time I was really grieving the move and I wasn't excited about it. And I just thought, nobody needs me. Like, nobody needs this mess. I'm too much. I can't even stand myself. Why would I put myself out there to a group of people? And I'm like, I don't want to be here. I don't like who I am. I don't like the season. Like, I don't like anything about this. So
you do understand.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm like, I'm a mess. I'm not friendship material. This is no fun,
Yeah. Who wants this?
Right.
Yeah. One thing that's kind of a little tangent, but got me thinking was, I don't know, I kind of felt scolded, but maybe not in the podcast. She said she doesn't like texting because it gives people access to you, and so then they expect you to respond. But I also didn't feel like she would genuinely like a phone call out of the blue. It was like, well, how would you like people to contact you? And I guess I'm saying, like, think about yourself. Like, I really miss the days where you could just give someone a call. Like, there wasn't any way to set it up. You were in your kitchen making dinner and you were bored and you called your friend. And if she couldn't talk, she said, oh, I can't talk. But normally she would just walk around the house with her cordless phone and talk to you, and you would do the same. And she would tell her kids to be quiet. Now I feel like you have to make an appointment to call someone. You're scared to call someone because what if you're interrupting their day? You could try texting them, but then you think, well, maybe they think they're not even worth a phone call. I can only call out of the blue. I find this to be a sad situation. My daughter, I can call out of the blue. Any one of my daughters. My daughter-in-law, my sons, let's see, my mom, my sister. I have like a handful of people outside my own kids. I don't even know if it's a handful. It's like 2 or 3 that I feel like I could just call. And if I interrupt them, no big deal. And I just want people to like check themselves. Like, I think I wanted to talk to Mindy and we had to set up an appointment like a week in advance. Now, I'm not saying that Mindy told me to do that, but I'm just saying that that's how you feel. You don't feel like you can just call people. If I don't know how many times I've accidentally hit Julie's name. It's somewhere on my phone screen where when I hang up sometimes. Yeah. And then I always feel bad. And then I always text to say that was just a mistake. But then that sounds terrible. Like,
I know. I
was going to call, but I didn't mean to call. Like, but then I think, well, would she even want a phone call out of the blue? Julie's one of my oldest friends. Like, how did society get to the point where I can't just call? Out of the blue. I can't just call.
Well, and I appreciated one night we'd been trying to walk and we just couldn't walk. And Marie called and said, there's nothing that says we can't talk just because we're not walking. And so we had like an hour-long phone conversation. And I'm not saying that I could always accept it. Like, I might be in the middle of something, but I would not mind someone just calling to chat. I would not.
Yeah. I just made an appointment with a friend in Knoxville to talk later today. But it's so true. Okay, so that was one of the takeaways from the podcast. I wrote this down, low commitment phone call. And I was like, I like the idea of that because I don't live near my mom and dad. And sometimes I think, oh, well, I live in a small town. It takes me 5 minutes to get places. When I lived in a bigger town, it took me 20 minutes. I felt like I could have a phone call. Well, now I don't call people because I'm like, I'll be in there in 5 minutes,
How many things did I accomplish in life when we only had cordless phones with between my neck and my shoulder and taking care of kids at the same time, but still managing to carry on a conversation.
Right. Feeding babies, making lunches, all that.
We didn't even have speakerphone.
All the kids yelling, Mom. Yep, they all needed you right then.
Yeah. So anyways, that's a loss of community.
I was thinking about, I did have a conversation on the phone the other night, and it's funny how you get to know somebody. Like, I've noticed this friend text me very late at night. So I thought, she's a night owl. She's a night owl like
Ooh.
me. And one night she texted and said, I need to talk about wedding stuff. Do you have a minute? So we talked from like, I think 11 to 12. So it's kind of funny. I know, and this is a friend who, she was my best friend in pharmacy school, moved away right after school. We literally hadn't seen each other in 30 years. We
Oh,
reconnected about 2 years ago, and we talk regularly now, and I've been to her house and she's been to my house. And so
Nice.
that's a cool friendship that I would have never said ended, but like you said, Marie, it was inactive for 30 years.
right.
But, I do think that she's somebody I could call, and I
Yeah.
could wait till 11 and call her at 11.
There you go. When you wake up early, you can call me.
I know.
Well, see, I'm rarely up that
I
time.
want to know all the people that I can call from 7 to 7:30 or 7:45 in the morning when I'm walking Clara, because I only have a handful of people. My mom and Abigail are basically it. But it's my best talking time.
That's so funny. I'm definitely more available at that time, Marie.
Okay.
I'm usually
And
not.
if I'm walking too, that works out great.
Yes. Long distance walking calls.
Uh-huh. I love doing that. A lot of times I do have friends that were like, that are long distance friends that we plan a walk
Nice.
so we can talk and catch up. So we
That
are
is
walking and
perfect.
talking, but it's long distance. And I love that. That's a lot of fun.
A great idea.
All right. Well, listeners, we hope that you have gained some ideas from what you've heard. I'm going to link the podcast in our notes because I definitely think it's something that everyone would benefit from listening. You can find us on Instagram at Midlife Matters Podcast, or you can email us at midlifematterspodcast@gmail.com if you have anything that you want to say to us on this subject. I feel like it's something that women could probably talk about for a really long time.
Yes.
Well, and I'd like to leave you with something that I loved that she said toward the end, was having the mindset that some of your best friendships are still in the future. And I thought, I don't know that I'm having a hard time believing anything about my future that's good right now.
Yeah.
But that was very encouraging to me. Like that, like, why not? I mean,
Yeah.
that's true. That is a
Julie,
true
thank
statement.
you so much. I was about to say the exact same thing.
I
That
thought about
brought
you.
me so much hope to think about, that there's in the future, there's life, there's more, there's people. So go find them.
Yeah. All right. Well, before we go, let's do I'm a Fan. All right, Julie, what are you a fan of this week?
I'm a fan of Costco for glasses. And I think maybe, Marie, you've talked about this before. I don't know, or at least I've heard you talk to me about it. I had gotten new glasses. I've gotten them at the eye doctor before and spent the big bucks because that's what John did. And then I realized, okay, this is not the way we have to do this. So I went to Warby Parker thinking I was going the cheaper route, and they were about half of what the eye doctor was. And then with my benefit from insurance, they were reasonable, but then I didn't have any more benefits and I needed a second pair of glasses and I wanted sunglasses. So I went to Costco and they were having a $50 off of frames, and I just wanted cheap frames like as a second pair anyway. So they were free. And then I got sunglasses because you had to buy one and get $50 off the second. But not only am I happy with my glasses, they were so nice and so helpful. And, at Warby Parker, it was a room full of men that helped me pick out my glasses. I shouldn't have trusted them. These were all women and they were so nice and just, I don't know. I just was not expecting that at Costco. You kind of thought you'd just be shuffled in and out, but not at all. It was a really good experience. So I've told my son, you must go to Costco. You must go to Costco.
Yes.
And they have a pretty good selection. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've been in there before on FaceTime with my daughter trying on different pairs. Then I'll turn around, ask the salesperson. Like, they're all willing to put in their opinions and, help you out. And then, if you don't like them and you need to take them back for any reason, they're willing to exchange them. Like, I don't know. I was really happy with the Costco glasses.
I'm a huge fan of Costco too. That's not why I'm a fan today, but I love that you said that because we have gotten Abby's glasses from there when she was in college and just had the best experience.
Yeah.
Mindy, what are you a fan of this week?
All right. I couldn't use my Costco one today, but I am a fan of a song that, you know how you hear a song a couple of times and then you have ears to hear the song? And I was like, wow, like this is exactly where I am. The song is called Again, and it's by Jeremy Camp. And I think what I love about this song is I really was thinking about how daily our walk with the Lord is, very daily. And there's some things that I feel like I've prayed a million times, and I even get tired of praying. And so this song really put to words how I felt with the dailiness or praying for something over and over and over and kind of getting tired of it. And I think that it put the emphasis not on that I would continue to be praying for something, but that God's love continues to meet me there. His faithfulness continues to meet me there. Words in the song is I can breathe again. And I feel like as I listened to the song, it just encapsulated where I am. The dailiness of needing the Lord and not being surprised at that. I'm surprised that God continues to meet me right where I am. And his mercy is new every morning. And so I just love the song. Like I've had it on repeat. It's just beautiful. The hope and the encouragement that it gives. And like I said, just put into words, just right. The dailiness, like life is so daily.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Mindy. I'll definitely link to that in our show notes.
Yeah, I always go ahead and add them to my playlist when you suggest them.
I had a lady stop me at church this last Sunday. She said, "Oh, I've been listening to that song that was your I Am a Fan called Still Waters." She was like, "I love it." I'm like, "Awesome. So this is for you, Claire."
Okay. That's great. All right. I'm a fan of a book this week. I just finished it last night. It's for our book club this month. And I've seen this on the New York Times bestseller list for probably more than a year. I think it's several months wait on the Libby app, even now. And it's been out for a while, but someone in our book club loaned me a copy. So it's called The Housemaid by Frida McFadden. And I think she has some other ones after it. And I've been reluctant to read it because it sort of looked a little creepy. And so it's about a woman that takes a job as a maid in a wealthy family's home, but soon finds herself entangled in their dark secrets and dangerous games. And it really was an interesting concept. And I'm going to read the second one. But if you have been seeing this book everywhere and you haven't gotten around to reading it, it might be something that you would enjoy. It's not scary. It's just a little creepy, I would say. So, and also an interesting fact that someone in the book club shared was, I guess this author is a brain surgeon. So I don't know if that plays into the way she wrote the book or not, but very interesting. So it's called The Housemaid by Frida McFadden.
And I think they're making that into a movie.
Oh,
Marie.
Are they? Okay.
Yes.
That'll be kind of a creepy movie.
It's a different read. Like you just have to be like, oh, that's weird.
Did you read it, Mindy?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I haven't read the second one yet because I'm always going back to those World War II reads that we all talk about. But anytime I completely different, not like a romantic, beach lighthearted. Yeah. That was so different from anything. I was like, okay, dude, that's psychological.
I think it's going to generate some discussion this month. So,
took revenge to a new level. I will say that.
Yes, for sure. All right. Well, Julie, Mindy, I enjoyed talking with you about friendship this week, and I'm so glad that we are friends. I value your friendship and look forward to talking with you every week.
All right.
Yes. I appreciate this rubber band has come together and pulled apart many times, and it's still intact.
It's stretched and pulled.
That's right.
Bounces back.
That's right.
All right. Well, we'll talk to you guys next week.
All right.
Sounds great.
All right, bye. We're so happy you joined us today. You can find the show notes for this episode at midlifematterspodcast.com. Also, please tell a friend about the show and help them hit the free subscribe button on their favorite podcast app. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at Midlife Matters Podcast. That's where we post pictures and stories about all the things we talk about in each episode. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.